Thoughts on the political experience, which you've only been through once.
Sure. Which is
substantial.
Yeah, it ages you in dog years.
You're just a year away from gearing up.
Right.
Can you take out-of-state contributions?
No. No, it's not permitted. Oh. So with regard to the election, the first go around, I'm happy to say, even in Texas, this was not an issue. My election was all about my credentials. In the primary, it reared its head just a tiny bit, but again, that was in the Democratic primary. I mentioned already we have partisan elections. My Republican opponent in the general election was just an absolute gentleman in every interaction. I never had any issues in this regard. It just did not come up.
I think that's a very positive sign.
Yeah, and if I can just say, I can recall a number of times through the campaign where in private sort of meet and greets, you would have these conversations with people. A lot of them were the gay and lesbian community meet and greets. They were the ones who wanted to talk about it. But I think to a person, no matter when it came up and the context in which it came up, people understood that by having that information out ahead and not being shy about it, neither promoting on the basis of it but not hiding from it, that it reflected on their sense of your own honesty and your candor as a candidate. And I think that's been the experience of openly GLBT candidates in all kinds of offices around the nation, that when you open that information up and you've put yourself out for election to the populace, what you've communicated to them is, what you see is what you are going to get, and I am willing to have you know who I am. It's a very powerfully positive message in an election kind of context.
Well, I always observe that they call news a reason, because when it's old, it's not news. And so by putting things out there yourself, it serves as an inoculation against coverage, because no one's really interested in writing about what someone else covered well sometime before.
I think that's true, but I don't want to avoid or miss the opportunity to underscore how much the world really is changing. People really just don't care about this, by and large, in the circles that I ran in. People really wanted to talk about the things that I had done in my career that prepared me to serve in the capacity as a trial judge and an impartial, importantly. Like, did I have a balanced career? Also, the breadth of issues that might come before a district court, what it prepared me to deal with the variety of legal issues I might see. That's the thing that I spent the bulk of my time talking to people about, and I just, I really believe that we are moving and turning the corner on this issue where it's just something that people are not going to they're not going to accept the invitation to discriminate against people in employment, for sure, on the basis of their orientation.
I would think that you do a lot of work in mentoring.
Yes.
I noticed, in the law, but also with younger people. Mm-hmm. I can't help but think, though, you must, just as you put yourself out there so they could find you, they must be finding you from time to time and looking for that mentorship.
Absolutely, there's no question, and I mean, it's a joy to my heart when I'm able to be the role model to someone that I didn't have. I mean, all of us sitting here, we didn't have anybody that we could really go and talk to that had traversed the path that we wanted to go as a person living an authentic life and being honest to themselves and to the public about who they are. So it's just I can't begin to tell you what it feels like to have the opportunity to be that person that I didn't have.
Mm-hmm. That triggers something, Vaughn, that I've been wanting to ask you. It is...
How's that for a lead-in?
It is an extraordinarily fortunate coincidence, I would think, that among the many high-profile cases you've handled during your career, that the marriage cases came when they did in your career. Is that...
You mean at the end?
Yes, yeah.
And that case finished me off, is that what you're saying? Well, it did come at the end, and as a matter of fact, I had not announced that I was going to retire, nor had I really disclosed that I was going to retire from the bench, but I'd made up my mind that I was going to do so. And I had set the end of 2010 in my own mind as the date when I was likely to do it. And what was keeping me on the bench and keeping me from making any announcement was the need to wrap up the national security wiretapping cases, which I had. I think your firm was involved in those cases. And it was a struggle to get them wrapped up, but I didn't feel that I could leave the bench without wrapping up all of those cases. And I knew that it was going to take at least well into 2010 in which to do that. And then one day in May, my courtroom deputy, who would bring in the new complaints that were filed, I would set them on my stand-up desk, and she did so without mentioning any case, and I went through one complaint after the other and came to one, and the first name I noticed on the complaint was Schwarzenegger. I thought, well, this is going to be interesting. And then started reading it and had one of those, oh shit moments. And it seemed to me then that it came right off the wheel that this was a case that we had to see all the way through. So that's how it came about. And I must say at the time, sitting on the bench as this case was unfolding, there were a lot of times when I thought, you know, it would have been a lot better if somebody else had drawn this case. But I think maybe in retrospect, maybe not, although I think the result would have been the same. But I do think coming at it from the background and perspective that I had was helpful. And so that sort of reinforces the idea that what we need in our judiciary are people who have a broad range of experiences in life, and obviously not every case can come through and match the background and qualification of the judge who happens to draw it. But in the judiciary as a whole, it is important that we have obviously people of the kind of background and credentials and intellectual capability to handle the job, but also all of the social and other background that reflects our society as a whole. So it's an important value, and obviously it's one that's being argued as we speak at the present time.
Before we come to a close, is there anything that I promised you I was going to ask that I failed to ask? Thoughts inspired by others here?
Well, how did you find in the legal profession as a practicing lawyer, which you've now done for 30 years?
30 years, yeah.
You've certainly seen a tremendous change in the way in which gay and lesbian lawyers are accepted in the legal profession, in major law firms. That has been a tremendous change. What are your thoughts and perspectives on where that has gone, and where do you think it's going?
Well, it has been I think a stunning transformation to the point where, NALP regularly collects, head count numbers on gay and lesbian lawyers, LGBT numbers, and firms care about the NALP rankings and are beating the bushes to get people to volunteer, to the point that, the love that dare not speak its name become the love that never shuts up. And it's and I think in urban centers in this country, it is my perception that this has grown to be a non-issue in the practice of law. In some ways, the conversations we have, I think, in law firms are around, clients, the last frontier. Do what you want, but don't scare the horses. And so that, and there are always questions around when I'm, I even guard my language. When I'm in Japan meeting with Japanese clients, it'd be so complicated. I don't know quite where to begin explaining cultural variation of this type. So there are times when I'm more reserved in that context. But on the other hand, it's still on the website. It's pretty easy to find if you Google me or any of the other gay lawyers at Morrison and Foerster. You're going to find out things they're associated with very quickly. So, but I think it has been a remarkable change. That and my other thought is that, you know, a generation in this effort is about 10 years, and things change fast. And I see Ruth Bornstein in the audience. She and I started the firm very close to the same time. I'd helped recruit her, and she and I have always tried to get out of the way of the people who are 10 years younger than we are, because they'll have different issues and different concerns, and it can't be our thing. It has to be someone else's. Well, I hope the audience has enjoyed this half as much as I have, and I think our panelists have from looking at their faces. I'm tremendously appreciative that Chief Judge Walker, Justice Linder, and Judge Parker joined me for this conversation. And with that, I'll hand it back over to Peter Keene to close.